welcome to another round of Sports Reviews. Tonight I am previewing and predicting the MLS Cup Playoffs. Every round, the whole tournament, from wild card to the MLS Cup Final. We will start with the wild card, then the Eastern Conference quarterfinals and the Western Conference quarterfinals, and go from there. So first, the two wild card games. First, the 7 vs 10 matchup, Nashville SC versus Inter Miami. I have to say I think Nashville's going to win because I think Nashville's system of play is a system that can easily stop Inter Miami from winning, stop them from scoring, having the possession, and all that. Nashville plays more of a 90s English football type tactic, like Big Sam football, David Moyes football, that type. So I'd say Nashville has a perfect system to shut down the stars of Inter Miami, and they're not helped by the fact that Rodolfo Pizarro will be quarantining after being called up to Mexico's national team and him playing for Mexico. He's going to have to quarantine. I think Nashville's going to win this game over Inter Miami and go on to face Toronto FC in the Eastern Conference quarterfinals, first round proper. And the other wild card match, the 8 vs 9 matchup, the New England Revolution versus the Montreal Impact. It's at Gillette Stadium. New England does amazing there. New England does amazing at Gillette. They're great when they play there. And Montreal sold their best player earlier on in the window, Saphir Taider. He's not there no more. Montreal limped into the playoffs, basically. Samuel Piette will be suspended for a red card that he picked up against DC United on decision day. And New England probably should have Gustavo Bo, Carles Gil, and Buxa, and all their players at that wild card game. So I think New England will win and go on to face Philadelphia Union. So your two wild card winners are as follows: Nashville SC and New England Revolution. With that said, let's go into the Eastern Conference quarterfinals, starting with the 1 vs 8 matchup. The 1 vs 8 matchup, Philadelphia Union versus the New England Revolution. The aforementioned New England Revolution. Philadelphia is going to beat them. They're just so much better. They've been undefeated at Subaru Park. They won the Shield for a reason. I don't think New England, after that limp effort they put up on decision day, it's going to be more of the same. Philadelphia is going to go through easily. Then, the 2 vs 7 matchup. Toronto FC versus Nashville SC. Same here, in a way. I think Toronto FC, luckily enough, none of their players have been called up for international duty, so they will not be missing anybody during the first round. Everybody will be able to come back from injury. They are able to train in Toronto right now as it is. So, with that said, I think they will get back to where they should be. They will have Piatti back. They will have Osorio back. Lorea sounds like he'll play. Pozuelo will be there. Akinola and Josie will be back. Delgado will be back. Morrow will be back. Everybody will be back for a cup run. And I think Nashville's the perfect opponent to start against. It's going to be a hard game, but the winner is obvious. Toronto goes through. Next, the 3 vs 6 matchup. Columbus Crew versus New York Red Bulls. This one, I think, is kind of obvious as well. Columbus is still pretty good. Lucas Zelarayan, I think he's able to play. I don't think he got called up. Most of their good players did not get called up. Zardes didn't get called up either. Eloy Room did not get called up either, if I'm correct. So, with the way it is, I think Columbus will overpower New York. It'll be a 2-1, 3-2 victory, but Columbus will do what they have to do to get through. New York, yeah, they beat Toronto, but Toronto didn't play well in that first half. And in the second half, Toronto tried to come back. They played way better. the way the Red Bulls look, they're kind of a team of luck. They got lucky getting into the place without a wild card game. They're probably the worst team without being a wild card team. I think Columbus will handle them. And finally, in the Eastern Conference quarterfinals, the 4 versus 5 matchup, Orlando City versus NYCFC. I think Orlando's the better team. Let's also remember that New York loaned out their best player as it stands, Matrita Eber Torres ACL. Medina is not their best player. Tajori Shradi, he's inconsistent at best. He's good, but inconsistent. To me, I think Orlando's going to do it. Chris Mueller's on fire. Daryl DK is on fire. Nani is on fire. His red card was rescinded. He will be playing. Gillespie, they may not have him in goal, but I don't really think that matters against New York. I think Orlando is the better team. It will be more of a challenge, but I think Orlando is the better team over New York. Orlando will go through to play Philadelphia. Now on the West, starting with 1 versus 8 in the West, Sporting Kansas City versus San Jose Earthquakes. Now, I like Mateus Almeida. I like what he does with his team, but the best attacker his team is going to have available to him in the first round due to quarantine restrictions is Chris Wondolowski. Now, I like Chris Wondolowski, but the way that team is built, they need the other attackers too. Kansas City is number 1 for a reason. Peter Vermees and Kansas City will do what they need to do to take out San Jose. I like Mateus Almeida, but the luck is just going to run out for him, and he can't pull a rabbit out of the hat. Kansas City goes through to the Western Conference semifinals. The 2 versus 7 matchup, Seattle versus LAFC. This is basically what it comes down to. Seattle will be able to play Raul Ruidiaz because he had COVID during the last international break. He does not have to quarantine coming back from his national team. He will be available. But LAFC, Diego Rossi is not available, and some of their other better players are not available because of call-ups. So with that said, I think LAFC is going to have another playoff disappointment because it's basically bound for them anyway, but at least they have an excuse this time. Seattle beats them 2 straight years. Seattle goes through because if they have Ruidiaz, that's all they need. That dude's a lethal striker. They needed to have him, and they have him. The 3 versus 6 matchup in the West, Portland Timbers versus FC Dallas. Portland. I know that Jeremy Abobase's hurt. Some of their players, Niazgoda's hurt too. He tore his ACL. Some of their players have been called up, and they'll be quarantining, but I think even without them, Portland should handle Dallas. Dallas is nothing special. Yes, they made the playoffs, but to me, Dallas is nothing special. They are frauds. They're kind of like New York. They're in it. They're in it, and they have a chance, but I'm sorry, but they're frauds. They're frauds. Portland's going to win, and you'll get a Cascadia clash in the Western Conference semifinals. Then finally, the 4 versus 5 matchup, Minnesota United versus Colorado Rapids. People say Colorado's the warmest team, the hottest team, the team with most to give, that their tanks are the fullest, but I don't think they're that good. Yes, they would have made it on points had they gone by points instead of points per game, but I like Nicola Benezet, I do, and Shinyashiki, but they don't have much. Besides that, they got rid of Kai Kamara to Minnesota, but he won't be able to play because of a gentleman's agreement. But to me, Minnesota, Adrian Heath got a lot of experience in tournaments due to the MLS's back tournament. I think he will be able to use that against Colorado. Robin Fraser does not have that experience, at least as a manager, even though he was Greg Vanney's assistant in 16 and 17 and the Champions League run in 18. I don't think he has that experience like Adrian Heath does. I'm going to say the Adrian Heath factor gets Minnesota through to the Western Conference semifinals. Now, I am just going to predict the last 3 rounds Not much reasoning because I'm going to have to repredict these rounds after the round reviews. So, like after the round of 16, the Eastern Conference quarters and the Western Conference quarters, I'm going to have to repredict these rounds anyway. So you'll get my initial predictions, but not much reasoning, but you'll get predictions. First, Philadelphia versus Orlando City. I think Orlando's a good team, as I said, but Philadelphia, they will have the players back that they need. Montero, Martinez, hopefully, Andre Blake. Gillespie might be back, but it may just be too big of a hill to climb for Orlando. Philadelphia goes through the Eastern Conference Final. The other match, Toronto FC versus Columbus Crew at Rentschler Field in Hartford, Connecticut, East Hartford, Connecticut. Toronto's already beaten Columbus there. Toronto can beat Columbus. If they get through the Nashville game on a high, I think they'll easily get through this one. It won't be a blowout, but I think they'll be way more up for this one after they get the mental block gone away. They have all their players back. They'll easily get through this one. And I don't think it'll be a comeback like last time. I think they will dominate this one. They will go through. On the Western side, Kansas City versus Minnesota United. Kansas City has the better team. They just do, overall. Minnesota does have the players, but Kansas City has the better team. Does have some players, but Kansas City has a better team, and they'll probably want revenge for MLS's back earlier on in the season. At the start of it, Kansas City gets their revenge and goes through to the Western Conference Finals. Portland versus Seattle. Seattle, because Seattle is the better team, and Seattle with Rui Diaz, João Paulo, Lodero, Svensson, Morris, they have this in the bag. They have it in the bag. Seattle reigns supreme over their Cascadia neighbors. And in the conference finals, the Eastern Conference Final, Philadelphia versus Toronto FC at Subaru Park. I think Toronto's going to win. Probably 3-1. They're not going to want to lose this close to another cup. They got drubbed at Subaru Park. It's not going to be that same type of lineup. They don't want to lose again to them. They are going to get their revenge and get through. They will play hard enough to get through. They will do it, I believe, in the Reds. The Reds are going to go through and beat Philadelphia and give them their first loss at home this whole season. They get so close, but yet so far. Patriots style. 18-1 style. You know what I'm saying. And then in the West, Sporting Kansas City versus Seattle Sounders. Sporting Kansas City wins at their home stadium to book a ticket to MLS Cup at Rentschler Field in Hartford, Connecticut. Because, as I said, Kansas City, Peter Vermees and his team, the team is the star thing. Johnny Russell, Gutierrez, Kinda, all those guys, I think it's going to be them. They have the better team. They have the better tactics this year. Kansas City is going to beat Seattle. I think Seattle's a great team, but Kansas City will finally break the monotony of Toronto MLS Cup Finals by finally being the other opponent. Being a new opponent in the MLS Cup Final. Toronto FC versus Sporting Kansas City. And I think Toronto's going to win. I think they are the best team. Well, left, should I say. They didn't win the Shield, but they were in shouting distance. With the players that they have, having all their players, they're better than Sporting by far. With Akinola, Pozuelo, Osorio, Delgado, Bradley, Moro, Alro, Lorea, Gonzalez, Mavinga, all those guys. We're just the best team with all our players. Kansas City will not have an answer. And I bet a 3-1 win for Toronto FC in the MLS Cup Final over Sporting Kansas City. Toronto FC, I predict, will be your 2020 MLS Cup champions. With that said, if you like this video, like it, share, subscribe. You know what it is. Tell all your friends. Monday, I have another Toronto FC parody song for you. I told you I had a couple up my sleeve. I'm Ryan and I'm out. Peace.